Thank you. Hi there. Like the gentleman said, the name is Stephen Vaughan-Nichols. I am a writer of CBS. ZDNet in particular is my branch. Though I also write for, excuse me. Boy, you can really hear that cough anyway. Though I also write for a lot of other publications. Before I was a journalist, though, I was a techie. And I was using Unix and the internet back starting in the 70s. I was a system administrator, I was a programmer, you name it, I did it back on the day. My first computer language, if you can call it that, was IBM 360 assembler. So I've been around, in short. None of which has anything to do really with my topic, except to say that I'm actually rather unusual. I am a journalist who I actually get technology at a pretty deep level. Even today, I actually have been known to compile my own kernel on occasion. Though, as Linus will tell you, I do a really ugly job of it. I decided to talk, usually when I do these talks, I talk just about the press because that's the side that I know the best. But I had also decided I would talk some about marketing today, and that's because lately I have been hearing a lot more crap than usual from open source circles about marketing, as in, you don't need it, it's ugly, it's all lies, lies, I tell you. And I'm here to tell you that, unfortunately, marketing is indeed a big part of your job if you want to have a successful open source project or a successful open source company. You can't avoid it, folks. It's a necessary evil. You remember when you were like 5 or 6 and you had to go to the doctor and they had this gigundous needle he was going to stick through your arm? Well, it's kind of like that. You may not like it. In fact, I know many of you hate it, but you need to do it. And the reason for that is that while you may think that writing great code is everything, it's not. The best code in the world, the best program in the world does not matter if no one else knows about it. If it's just stuck in a GitHub repository somewhere and you know about it and 50 other developers who it happens to be that particular thing that you're scratching their itch, that's great, but that's not going to be enough to make your project really a success. You need to talk with people. Now, we like to talk about open source being a meritocracy, and that's true to an extent, but it's not the whole truth. It's more of an ideal that we have that we try to live up to. But it's not just the quality of your code. It's a convenient, it's really, the meritocracy is an ideal. One might even, to be more cynical about it, you might call it a convenient fiction. Now I know that just the other day, Red Hat's Jim Whitehurst told Wired about how, the meritocracy is all what makes the difference. And he's right as far as that goes. But again, that's only part of the story. And perhaps the bigger story is the meritocracy is not just about your programming, but it's about your networking, about getting the words to the right people so that they'll know about your project. So the bottom line is that you do need us. You do need marketing and so on. And a fellow by the name of Nathan Mars. Anyone know him? Nope, this is not an Apache crew. He came up with a little project called Storm, which you're going to hear a lot more about soon because Storm is what's going to enable big data to do even a lot more nifty things in the near future. And he said, any successful project requires 2 things. One, you already know, it solves a problem that needs a solution. That's easy. And the other part he said, and he's so right, and this guy is not a marketing guy at all, he is just a straight programmer, as hardcore as you can get. He said, a successful project must also be able to convince a significant number of people is that your project is the best solution to their problem. Now that's a real pain. I know many of you would like to believe that it's sort of like, remember the movie Field of Dreams? He built the baseball park and they would come. Doesn't work that way. It would be lovely if that really were that way, but it's not. You do have to get your message out to the world. One problem I see a lot of right now is some people confuse marketing with the community. They're not really the same things. They're related. Think of them as like siblings in the same family. They may, actually, remember your pesky little brother or little sister, depending how annoying they could be? Well, it's kind of like that. Marketing is about getting the word of whatever your project is to the world. Community developers are about defining what that message is. What really are you all about? And telling the community, you know, I've listened to all of you. Let me, if I get this straight, this is what we're about. This is what we should be doing. I know we've got community manager types in here. They can probably add on to that. But I think on a 10,000-foot overview, that's the difference. Marketing to the outside world, community management to the inside world. And, you know, you can see how those jobs can dovetail together, but they're not the same thing. I think companies that mistake one for the other really do themselves a disservice. So what is marketing really about then? Well, Peter Drucker, anyone know who Peter Drucker is? Okay, good, yay. Okay, he was really the guy who came up with the idea for the modern business corporation. And his ideas are still valid today. And he said, the art of marketing is to know and understand the customer so well that the product or service fits him and sells itself. Now, yesterday, Bob Young, one of the co-founders of Red Hat, which one is really the founder, you can, you know, Mark and Bob can talk about that forever. But he made the point is that for Red Hat to be successful, and Red Hat is by far the most successful pure open source play company in the world, bar none. Yeah, pure open source play, I can say that. He said, we had to understand the customers more than customers understood themselves, and he's right. That is not easy. That is not easy at all, but that is the job of marketing. Now, that may not be your job as someone who's much more concerned about code, but you do need to be aware of that. If you're going to sell your product, your service, whatever, to the outside world, you need to know what that outside world thinks about your project, or rather, how your project can fit their needs. Because if it doesn't fit their needs, it's not going to go anywhere. Peter Drucker said it decades ago, when he was right. Bob Young, when he founded Red Hat, I don't think Bob actually had read Drucker, but he came to the same conclusions, and he was exactly right. Another quote that I like by a guy named David Packard, helped found a little company called Hewlett-Packard a while back. And he said, marketing is too important to be left to the marketing department. It really is, because all too often, one of the reasons why marketing has a bad rep, I think, in our business is there's a tendency for people to see marketing as this separate thing. Is the group, they're the marketeers. They're the woman in Dilbert with the big fluffy hair who really doesn't get things. That's not what marketing should be. Marketing should be honest about what the heck it is that you really do, and at the same time, it should be take that message of what you really are and get that message to the outside world. If marketing is saying something that you're not, then you've got a problem. The other part of that is, marketing is too important to be left to the marketing department is, each one of you, even if you never think about marketing, even if you hate the very idea of marketing, you are representatives of your product and of your company, okay? This is 2014. You're on Twitter, you're on IRC, you're talking on GitHub. You are always presenting your project to the world. Now, you might not like that. You may feel very uncomfortable about that. Linus, for example, I know for a fact, feels really uncomfortable about the idea of being the face of Linux. I mean, he kind of likes it, It's cool, it really is. You get cool rewards, you get money, life can be really good. But it also is you you're just working on your first project and so on, but if your name gets attached to a project, if people start thinking of you as the face of whatever your program, whatever your business is, and they are going to be watching you. And so when you say something on Twitter that say is obnoxious about some other program, for example, in the world of DevOps, some Salt people I know cannot resist zinging Chef and Puppet every chance they get. You know what? That does not help them. I mean, it's cute occasionally. God knows I pound on Microsoft like a redhead stepchild, but it's not what you want to do if you want to make a positive image on people. You want to be positive. You need to be aware that you are in the public's eye. Even if you don't think you are, trust me, you are. And so you need to keep that in mind, that even though you don't even think of what you're doing at all as marketing, if you're representing our code is so cool, that is a marketing statement, okay? You are involved, whether you want to be or not, whether you're even aware of it or not. Okay, next up. A subject that's sort of near and dear to my heart, and again, open source people so seldom get that. This one is branding. When I'm talking about branding, I'm talking about things like your product name, your company name, whatever. This is the kind of stuff that a lot of people think is trivial. They think that, who cares? We'll name our company whatever. We'll just stick up a generic logo and everybody will love us. It actually does matter. What visual images you use, what words you use to describe your product, the name you use actually matters. Now, it can be a silly name. Once upon a time, there was a modem company called Gandalf, which actually, they made pretty good modems back in the day. Okay, no one here has probably even used a modem. Well, some of you have, but okay. Okay, so I'm dating myself, okay? Okay, but let's face it. Yeah, I know. Okay, but let's face it. I mean, Red Hat is kind of a silly name. SUSE, if you're not from Germany, is a silly name. It actually is a very generic name in German, and so on. But it does, these things do matter because they will become the shorthand that the world will see your project as, okay? So if you see a Coca-Cola logo, you immediately have an idea of what that is about. You know what Coca-Cola is. Same thing with Apple, okay? You see the Apple logo, one of the various logos, you know what Apple is about. You get all of these associations pop into your mind. Now, in our world of open source, you've got the Red Hat Shadow Man, okay? Some of you didn't even know it was called that, right? The little logo of the fedora and so on. But that matters. Every time now anyone involved in the tech world sees it, they know that means Red Hat. And with that comes a whole set of associations. When people think about Coke, they think about, I anyway, like Coke. So I think about it tastes good. Gosh, I'd like a Coke now. And all the branding people are going, yes, it worked. Okay? Same thing actually, you know, picking on Red Hat again, who's done a pretty good job of that. If you do that well, you have associations in the people who want to use your mind, and you can use that association, you can use that shorthand. Because let's face it, a business guy may not know Red Hat from anything. They may not know Firefox, but even today, trust me, there are people who still don't know what the heck it is. But they'll recognize the cute little logo, okay? They'll know the name, they'll have certain associations with that, which will help them sell it, or unfortunately recently Firefox brand has been taking a terrible beating because of their internal fights, but that's a whole nother story. That actually is the other part of marketing about, you know, you don't want to get bad stuff out there, it will hurt you. So again, you may not think this stuff is important, but when it comes to times to name things, you really do want a memorable name. You want to protect that name. It's one reason why Red Hat got really cranky there for a while about all the people who are making the Red Hat clones like Whitebox and CentOS and so on. It's not that Red Hat was being anti-open source, because they're not. What they were being, though, they were protecting their trademark, the Shadow Man, the name Red Hat. So because that was their brand. And if, say, CentOS had come out with a distribution that was just awful, and people thought CentOS 10 years ago was Red Hat, that would have hurt Red Hat. So you've got to be careful about defining, we're the company that makes product X, they're the people who do product Y. Yes, the source code is absolutely identical. Take that, Oracle. Oracle. Anyway, that's another story. And, but by defining, this is us, our logo, our trademark, this is them, it helps you. It really does. So think about it when it comes time to get the word out to people. Okay, another part of that besides trademarking and so on is if you're going to go out to the public, you can no longer just talk on IRC. You can no longer just tweet about your product. You need to get out there. You need to tell the world, the larger world, not just the programming community that is coalesced, we hope, around your project. You need to go to conferences. You need to make speeches. You need to get the word out to people. This is what we are. This is what we're doing. And since this is open source, and oh, by the way, if you can help us, if you think this is cool, come on in, because we can use you. Because, of course, any open source project can use people, but you do have to make an active effort. You need to get away from the keyboard. You need to stop coding or find someone who can help you, who really gets what you're doing, and stop coding and go to the conferences, talk to people, get the word out there. You also need to start at this point, you need to start thinking about talking to people like me. Hi, I'm wearing my other hat now, my press hat, okay? Because if we don't know who you are, then we can't get the word out to the larger world that Storm, for example, is doing this really neat big data stuff. You can check it out. Okay, actually another example. Part of this is sort of a combination of getting the word out and branding. When Mars started working on Apache Storm, he just offhand said, Storm is the Hadoop of real time. It caught on. If you're not into real time or big data, it doesn't mean anything to you. Trust me. In the world of big data, real time big data. A little deeper, it's about paralleling big data analysis and searches. So things go even faster in the Hadoop world than they do currently, which is still pretty darn amazing when you think about what Hadoop does. And because he had two things. One, he went out and he went to conference after conference and talked to person after person. He started talking to the press. And finally, he came up purely by accident with sort of a branding statement, which is, Storm is, real-time Hadoop. Again, the broader public, they have no clue what Hadoop is, but the people he was trying to reach, which is the big data people, they got it. They got it, and Storm now, again, because I don't see very many, I don't think there's hardly any big data people here, but trust me, if you're in that world, you've already have heard about them, and you're going to care about it because it's important, and it's really not, and because, yeah, the code actually is, it's really cool code. I mean, I can't program worth a damn anymore myself, but I can still read code and see where it's going. This stuff works, and that's pretty damn rare when it comes to parallel processing anything, even today. Okay. So that's sort of the really broad 10,000-foot view of marketing. Now, where does the press come in, which is really what I'm about? We're the people who talk to the world at large. Now, there are people, for example, who write for Phosphorus and opensource.com and so on. They're talking to the people who already get it, okay? I'm not. I am talking, generally speaking, through CBS to a much broader world than that. And talking actually to the Linux.com, opensource.com, Phosphorus, and so on, that's all good, and actually that's probably where you should start. But if you want to make that next leap, you need to start talking to people like me. And there's a few assumptions I should talk to you about first that you should not make about the press. For one, I am pro Linux. I have been using My first Unix was System 7 on a PDP 1170, back before some of you were born. And so I get this stuff. I really like this stuff. I can argue passionately about it. At the same time, though, I'm a critic. I'm the press. So just because I happen to like Mark Shuttleworth, for example, and Ubuntu Linux, and I can even find nice things to say about the Unity desktop, I really can, does not mean that there have not been times I have written things that have really, really ticked Mark off because I said, this isn't right, this isn't real. So while I may like you personally, and my counterparts like Sean Michael Kerner may like you personally, and we may be friendly with you, always remember, we're not really on your side, okay? Now, some journalists try to play the game both ways. I'm not one of them. I don't think anyone currently covering Linux and open source seriously for a major publication is. Now, there are other people who do play it that way. If we're talking about Apple, we might think of David Pogue, and he might have said something negative about Apple at one point or the other, but I can't remember what it was. So that's great if you happen to have someone like that who you know loves you, loves your product, loves your project, wants you to come over and have a glass of wine on Saturday night to discuss your project in great detail. I'll tell you, if they do that, they're not actually wanting to know about the project. It's something else going on if they want you over for wine on Saturday night. But that's another story. I don't encourage that, by the way, though I have occasionally had PR people who were lovely and wonderful, and I thought, there is no way you find me that interesting. I'm sorry, but you don't. Actually, sort of a cute little personal story about that. I happen to be married, though, to a marketing person. My wife is the chief marketing officer, I should say, the chief marketing officer of a law firm called K&L Gates. Anyone know who the Gates of K&L Gates is? It's Bill Gates' dad. And we've had many interesting conversations about the Gates family and how, I'd love to go with you to that retreat in Seattle, but all in all, I probably shouldn't do it because marketing and the press were not really on the same side. Our public relations either. We may work together, we may depend on each other, but we're not on the same side. So while I, for example, married a marketing person, yay, that does not mean that no matter how close you get to the press, you can ever really assume that we're really on the same side because we will occasionally surprise you in a really unfortunate way. And you need to understand that going in, that we're not always on the same side. In fact, we often aren't. Okay, now then, having said all that, you do need to talk to us at some point. When you are ready to take that next step, whether it's to a smaller publication and you just want to get the word out to the Linux world, or you're ready to go out there to the larger world, the big world of businesses that want to buy your services, then you need to talk to people like me. And when you talk to people like me, you need to be aware of a few basic things. One, we tend to hate phone calls, okay? This is basic stuff here. Never, ever call us. We are always on perpetual deadline. I have 2 stories to write today. God help me. I don't know how I'm going to do it. But then I never do, okay? But everyone has their particular way. Generally speaking, though, you can't go wrong with email. And when you do send us an email, tell us a few things. And this is baby simple, but I see PR professionals below this every day of the week. Tell me what the heck it is you're doing. Tell me what's new, significantly new. I don't care that you have a new vice president of finance. I really, really don't care, okay? I might care, actually I will care if, say, Red Hat were to fire their CFO. Oh, I'd care a lot about that. I do care when Larry Ellison says, oh, I'm not the CEO anymore. I'm just being charged, okay? As if Larry could ever say anything else. And by the way, every unpleasant story you've ever heard about Larry Ellison, they're all true. Okay. We love each other. But he still talks to me occasionally. Rarely. It's been known to happen. Okay. So get your message straight. Make sure it's straight in your own head. Because if you don't know really what you're doing, I sure the heck can't figure it out. Hit it fast. Tell me first line, first paragraph, what you're doing, who your audience is, what you've got that's really nifty. Why should the world care? Because if you can't explain to me who your audience is and why they should care, I can't do it for you. That's your job, that's marketing's job. To an extent, it's the community's job. It's not mine. Okay? Basic primitive stuff here. Give me a contact. Okay? I need a name of someone I can call. I need an email address. I would like a phone number because we're shameless. We will call you, even though you don't want us to. We don't really want you to call us. Actually, there are very rare exceptions, but I won't bother to get into those. I can't emphasize this enough. You've got to give us contact information. I have so many times I've gotten something really interesting, and I have no idea. All I've got is this press release, and it doesn't tell me who the heck I should talk to. I mean, that's stupid. And I see large Fortune 50 companies do that all the time. And so it's not just the open source world. This is everybody blows these basic things way, way too often. How you should do this? Well, you can start with, besides just putting it on any news release you send us, or even if you just send us a note, you don't even have a news release yet, press release. You just want to say, listen, I've got something really cool. I think it matters. Here's why, la, 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 all the other stuff I said. Okay. Again, the contact information must be in there. Put it on your website. Make it easy to find who your press person is. Oh, you say you don't have a press person? Congratulations, you're it. You're now the press person there. Or you're it, you're the press person there. Someone needs to have that job, and it is a job. It may not be a job that'll eat up a lot of time, but someone needs to be the contact person. Someone needs to be ready. Okay. And if your program is actually something that has, visual impact, this is really important for those of you who are doing mobile apps these days, and I know a lot of you are. For God's sake, give us screenshots, okay? It's not that we're lazy. It's not that we can't figure it out how to put it on Android or our Android phone or our iPad, whatever. It's that we don't have time. I mean, we barely have time to talk to you, and some of us work on, install tons of programs. I mean, I install operating systems for fun. That's how sick I am, okay? There aren't many of us like that. Most of us have no time. You need to spoon feed us, okay? It's not that we're stupid, okay? It's that we are under constant deadlines. We are always being crushed by time. When I said I had 2 stories due today, that's not making anything up. I really do. I've just had that much work to do on a daily basis. Yes?
For a number of open source projects, that seems to be the most difficult part, is that, it's pretty common when, we'll get an email or phone call from someone in the press, and they'll say, I want a deadline, I need a response now. And for the most, generally, most open source projects are volunteer-based, and it's difficult to find people to do that. I mean, so, and I guess this is more theoretical, but what can be done to help make those things work better? I mean, at Apache, we have Sally, so that helps. But even then, it's Sally's job to corral somebody to actually do the answering. So it's, unless you're a professional, full-time open
Right.
source project, it's hard to get somebody
It is.
who's available immediately like that to respond to press requests, which are on deadlines.
Yeah.
I don't know
You know,
how to get around that. Or,
It's, there isn't a way around it.
Yeah.
It is a real, trust me, I feel the pain because deadlines for me are, are hours. I find out something and if 24 hours has gone by, that story is dead to me. No one will care to read about it because someone else will have done something else on it. Now they may get it totally wrong, but it will be out there, and then I'm off to the next deadline. It's, the neat thing about the internet is we have all the news all the time. The bad thing about the internet is someone, whether it's me who does it for a living or someone who happens to be on the spot, say in Ottawa with their phone when the unfortunate stuff happened there yesterday, that news is going to get out there. And so there really is not a good solution for it. And that is indeed a true pain for smaller projects, and for that matter, smaller companies. And I wish there were a way around it, but it's just how news is right now. At this very moment, I suspect Ricky there is tweeting some of this. Yes, exactly so, because that's the kind of thing that people like. She's been a journalist. She and I do that kind of thing constantly. And I wish I could say there's an easy way. Trust me, we hate it as well. Yes, Ricky?
I was going to say that your point about responding fast is very, very true. I mean, there were many stories I wanted to cover that I dropped because I couldn't get a response fast enough.
Right.
And other people responded faster, and so they got the coverage.
Exactly.
I hated getting press releases and announcements that had nothing to do with the area I covered. And
Yep.
so do your homework before you reach out.
Yep.
Because it's releasing our time if you don't know what we know about.
Yep, exactly. So I was going to get to that. It does you no good and us no good if you say you get a press list from somebody, okay? You've gotten your act together. You'll find out that people have a whole list of people who cover stuff. Unfortunately, that's what they are. They're a list of people who cover stuff. Okay, I don't play golf. I have never held a golf club in my hand in my life, okay? I know. What can I say? It just never got me. But I get press releases about left-handed, I'm not left-handed either. What is this? All the time. For example, hi, my name is Stephen Vaughan-Nichols. I cover a lot of things. Primarily, though, I do operating systems, I do open source, and I do networking. So you might have, let me think, the best, what is outside my scope? Not very much actually, but if you say you're a chip vendor, okay? You're doing open hardware. I'm interested in open hardware. I have a Raspberry Pi. Once in a blue moon, I'll do a story about Raspberry Pi just because I think it's neat, and it is open, but it's not really my gig. So when you look out there, read the publications, find out, if your project isn't out there, somebody has a project out there like it, just do a Google search. Who covers it, okay? Who has written about Apache software before? Hi, I have, which is why I hear from Apache all the time. Does Mary Jo Foley, who covers Microsoft like paint, cover Apache? No, she does not. And she just says, Stephen, tell them to stop bugging me. They haven't recently, by the way, Jim, so it's okay. Yes, sir.
Is there not some sort of like a repository where the smaller companies and developers can submit press releases to, maybe has tags, keywords, that sort of thing, that would be like an interface where somebody like you could go and
Nope.
search for
Nope. And if I had, I don't have time to do it anyway, even if there were. You need to talk to us directly. Yes, in the back.
Another thing to mention is that open source projects can also keep in mind that there are publications like opensource.com where we're not very news oriented.
Right.
We do cover some news, but so we're not as time-based. So
Exactly.
It's a reason to us to get your message out there that we can take a longer period of time to turn around.
Yep, exactly so. So, there are many kinds of journalism. I do everything from bang, it's news, to deep reviews of stuff and features that take days and weeks. But generally speaking, right now I'm just talking about the news side of things, not the feature side. Yeah, and opensource.com actually, talk to those folks. I know they're associated with Red Hat, but they are far from just Red Hat. They've got a broad reach. They're actually a really good place to talk to. And knowing the people there, if you do something wrong, they'll tell you politely. I'll try to tell you politely, but more often than not, I just won't tell you anything because I've already moved on to the next story. Yes, sir.
So my product's in like a real red ocean
Right.
market. We're a Node.js CMS. And in that specific space, we're pretty unique, we're pretty advanced, but our problem is the second we bring up that phrase CMS,
Right.
people start associating us with dozens and dozens and dozens of products and
Right.
start tuning out what our benefits are.
Right.
Do you have an example of somebody that maybe had a similar situation that really was able to get your attention and able to distinguish themselves in that situation?
The Storm people did. I will drop me your card. I will give you Mars did a really excellent paper explaining his project, not just from the technical side. Actually, it's a blog posting. But it's really the best I've ever seen of someone who explains the technical side of the project and how they did the marketing and so on, and how he came up with these ideas. What I can tell you, though, in general, is that you really, to borrow from Agile, you need to get your people together, figure out, okay, what is this about us that really is unique and neat? What's a quick thumbnail way, elevator pitch, of getting that so they'll understand we are not Drupal, for example. We're not WordPress. We're what makes us different. Let's see, do I have anything else on my list? I'm sure I do. Oh yes, speaking a language we understand. I get tech, that's great. There are very few things that can throw me. The vast majority of people who are going to be covering your project know nothing about technology. Even the people whose job it is to cover technology, they don't. It would be a great and wonderful world if everyone who does technology journalism actually had technology experience, but they just don't. They really don't. So when you talk to them, you need to have someone who can talk to them in something other than C++, okay? You need someone who can talk to them who does not speak in, well, we took the CSS, but we don't know that in the new HTML5 the W3C is just coming up with whether or not this is really going to work, because the eyes have just glazed over like a donut. Excuse me. Goodbye, whoever you are. How dare you? The very nerve. This is probably...
Didn't he just hear you? Don't call me.
I said, don't call me, really, seriously. And that's actually an LA number, so that probably is someone. No, I don't have anyone in LA right now, so don't talk down to us, but get a clue. It doesn't take, you're techies. It takes you like 1 minute to figure out, do they have a clue or not? And if they don't, be able to talk to them at their level. Try to. I know it's hard. It's painful, but baby steps. Yes, sir. All the way in the back.
What would you recommend differently for companies that deal in services, training, consulting, rather than in hardware, software?
It's difficult. You need to really craft your message well, because inherently the public and therefore the press is much more interested in new products, new software, new hardware. There are some of us who get that services really are important. For example, I happen to be a really big believer in software-defined networking, SDN. I think it's going to change everything in the data center. The vast majority of people will never see it. They'll never care about it. But in the world of data centers, it's vitally important. And so the only thing I can suggest to you is sort of related to what I suggested to the other gentleman, which is very carefully craft your message, define what it is that's different, tell the press why you're important, why your product is, why your service is important. And if you craft a well put together message and give us a hook, something that you think the general public, or at least the public that's interested in your service, would care about. Again, this takes a lot of work on your side, I know that. But again, as press, it's not my job to come up with that. It's my job to report on what you give me. And if you give me a well-crafted message, I will do that. Now, again, general public press, they'll never get software-defined networking, okay? It will never, ever happen. The Wall Street Journal might have a story on page C1 about it, but that's about it. And that will only be about HP joins into some SDN initiative. And the news hook there will be HP does something interesting. It won't be software-defined networking. I wish I could give you a better answer or a simpler, niftier, easy answer, but unfortunately there isn't one. One final point on that is, besides just not getting the text, the technology, you need to give people context. If we're in press, again, that's telling us why it's important in this world. Why should we care? Is really the bottom line question. Why should we care? If you can't tell us that, we can't tell anybody else that. Okay. Let's say that you have software for left-hand violinists to help them. And God knows a left-handed violinist needs all the help they can get. How many people go to the symphony ever? Oh dear. Okay, well, a few do. Okay, everyone's going the same way, aren't they? You don't see a violinist in the second row going, it's difficult stuff. So let's say you have an open source program that is the bee's knees if you're that left-handed violinist. It tells them, for example, how to, I don't know, break the arms in a way that no one can discover of all the right-handed violinists, so you can finally get first chair. Okay, I know, this is music stuff, but okay, I care about music. What can I say? In that case, not only should you be talking to the open source specific press, but there is a music industry press out there. Talk to them as well. If you've got something, okay, you were saying service. What kind of services do y'all do?
Consulting and training for Linux.
Okay, training for Linux, okay. Well, that's, in that case, you know, your specific audience is Linux, but let's say you found a new and interesting way of training, or you think you have anyway. There are a few publications, a few websites that care about certification and training and all that good stuff. Talk to them about, they may not care about Linux per se, but they will care about certification, they'll care about training. Maybe it's something as simple as, for that kind of publication, as simple as a way as you found a way to do this faster and cheaper and more efficiently. They'll get that word out there. It may not be a lot of people that will care, but some will. If nothing else, maybe you'll get someone from some other company saying, you know, they are doing really interesting stuff at your company. I should go and throw them a resume. You may end up with your best employee ever. You just don't know. All righty. What else? Oh, yes. When you talk to us, do your best to be sweet, charming, friendly. Do not treat us like, oh, I don't know, idiots. When we say something that bothers you, don't tell me that I am a jerk who loves Windows and wouldn't understand Linux if it came up and bit him on the nose. Or rather, Tux came up. Yeah, Tux came up and bit me on the rump. For one thing, actually, chances are I know more about Linux than you do if you think I'm a Windows guy. But if you alienate the press, we do remember, the saying used to be never get into a fight with a journalist because we have more ink than you do. And even today, when it's not ink but pixels, we have more pixels than you do. You can tell all your friends what an awful person I am, or Sean Michael Kerner, or whoever. Trust me, I work for CBS. I have 25,000 followers on Google+. My word will get, I'm friends with Linus, trust me. It will only hurt you if you try to fight with the press. Instead, and this will happen, say no, not me. I could never make a mistake. Never, ever. But say someone really does blow it, okay? They completely misrepresent what you're about. Talk to them. Okay, first, write a note in which you call them every name in your vocabulary that your mother never wanted to know, okay? And then send a polite note explaining, listen, you've got this wrong, okay? Or rather, not you got this wrong, I think you didn't quite get what we were talking about. You know, be polite. Put on your talking to grandma voice, okay? You want to be as polite. Now be firm, be clear what your point is, but you know, be polite. And sane journalist, there's only a few of us who are really crazy, and actually some of you may eventually meet some of the crazy ones, but let's put them to the side. If you do it that way, we'll get it. Also, if we just make a dumb blunder, and that happens a lot more often these days, because today, when I was talking about my deadlines, I've got hours to hit deadlines. We used to have copy editors and proofreaders and editor editors, all these layers between my words and your eyes. Now there are none. Frequently there are none. And I work for CBS, which is not a small company, okay? That's our world today, because it's all about cutting costs in journalism, and it's fast, 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 fast. I need to get that word out there as soon as possible. So if you see just say I misspell your name. I do that all the time. You'd know. Okay, just send me a note, because I want to know that kind of thing, actually. If I make an idiot grammar mistake, if I drop a word from a sentence, which is my favorite dumb mistake, because when I write it, I see all the words there, but then when my fingers hit the keys, I drop a word. Just let me know. That way you can just send me a quick email. Steve, did you know that? Now, don't get into grammar wars with me, though. I mean, if I blow its and its, yeah, do tell me about that. apostrophe-s, its. I've done that. Mea culpa. But, you know, just tell me. Let me know. I'll appreciate it. Your message will also look better, because one of the things I really hate about not having those layers there is, besides just not being able to get the word out correctly, it does matter. And this matters for the stuff that you send out to the public as well. You've got to get the right words in the right place, because if you make those kind of mistakes all the time, people may not even be consciously aware of it, but trust me, with every little dumb mistake you make, some reader of your project manual or whatever is going to think a little bit less of you. And those little chips eventually end up in cracks, and suddenly your project doesn't look that good after all. How am I doing on time, by the way? Because I never pay attention. I'm over. Oh no! Well, now I know. Well, I won't. But you're all still here. This is good. But I see other people. I see other people are coming in, and so I should probably wrap up now. Since I'm already over, I doubt I even have time for questions. But if you'd like to talk more to me, goodness knows you can easily find me on any communication or network known to man. Look for my very odd initials, SJVN. You know, I'm like RMS and ESR that way, you know. Just a set of initials, and you'll find me everywhere around. Thank you very much for your time and your patience in listening to me.